Hello everyone, I Nirmala Rawat welcome you to my YouTube channel. I hope you all are doing well. We were on chapter 9, completed part 1, so moving on to chapter 9, part 2. She would be quite old now. She may not even be alive anymore. The woman who told me of her said it has been a few years since she has received any word of her. I don't know much about her, except that it is said the Maharani had conveyed to her much knowledge of the plant medicines, and people from here used to travel all the way there for healings. I am told her name is Soma. I was listening quietly outside the room, not wanting to make my presence known. But when I heard my mother say the name Soma, a slight expression of surprise involuntarily escaped my lips. My parents felt silent when they heard my murmur. Realizing that I had unwillingly revealed my presence, I entered the room. My parents looked at one another, unsure of what to say to me. Pitaji, I pleaded, looking at my father. I want to overcome this fear as much as you want me to. Please let me go meet this woman. I feel that she will be able to help me. Yes, of course, your mother will take you. It's a long journey, but you will be sent with supplies and guards so that you can safely make the trip. My heart began to flutter at his words. Did I really have my father's blessings to go meet the woman who had cared for our Maharani for most of her life? Feelings that I had had for the Maharani since childhood, but which had been put aside during my growing up years, now re-emerged in full force. She would be able to tell me what had really happened to the Maharani in the jungles of the south. I alone, it seemed, among all the people of Ayodhya, had refused to believe the story of the kidnapping. She would confirm my intuitions of what I had no doubt, and then I could refute this story to all. Perhaps she also could help me understand why I had such a fear of marriage. When my mother saw the glow of hope on my face, she cautioned me. Don't get your hopes up, Anusuya. We don't know if she will meet us or even if she is still alive. It was too late. My hopes had been raised, and I lived the next few days in anticipation of meeting Soma. We set off some days later for the journey, which took place without incident. As we traveled through forests and villages, I wondered why the Maharani had chosen to live in such an isolated place rather than in comfort of Ayodhya. I had never traveled outside of the city before, and every detail struck me. I wondered at the village life, the animals, the thick forest. The journey gave me a taste of the extent of our kingdom. Previously, my universe had been contained within the walls of Ayodhya. But now I was discovering the world beyond. It made me wonder what it must have been like for the Maharani and Sri Ram to have travelled all the way to the ends of the land, to such distant places I could not imagine. In my wildest dreams, I could not have envisioned the world that lay beyond our narrow streets and peopled markets. My father was a respected administrator in the government, and we knew we would be well received at the hermitage near the palace where Soma was known to dwell. My father had already sent word of the reason for our journey and our intention to meet Mata's attendant, Soma. The day's light was quickly fading, and we had to race against time to reach there before being fully enveloped in darkness. When we arrived at the hermitage, I was surprised by its modest appearance. My mother had warned me that we would have to accept whatever accommodations were offered, as ascetics live a simple life. The Guru, spiritual teacher of the hermitage, came to greet us and received us warmly. After having us shown to our modest but clean room, he invited us to join him for the evening meal. It was then that my mother inquired about Soma. Is she still alive? My mother asked. He nodded with a smile. Very much alive, but aged. Does she receive visitors? We have come all this way to see her. Then my mother added, I am told she has healing powers. He laughed. Without confirming or denying, he replied, It has been many years since Devi Sita left her physical form. At first, many people used to come see Soma. Now, hardly any visit. Whether the people of Ayodhya came for healing or not, whether they received what they came for or not, I cannot say. I know for sure that Soma would deny any healing power. She would say that whatever is given comes from her Mata. This is what she called Devi Sita. Now only the wandering ascetics come by. I hear that she continues to feed them all, despite her age. No doubt she will insist on feeding you as well, he chuckled. But you may take your meals here, and you are welcome to stay as long as need be. Whether your daughter receives healing or not, I'm sure the visit with Soma will be well worth your long journey. Well worth it. I must warn you, she spends most of her time in silence these days and doesn't speak much. It seems as if she has already entered the other world. Every now and then I am able to visit her, but we just sit in silence. Sometimes she does not even open her eyes, and I am not sure she is aware that I am there. Yet her body persists. Once she told me that she will only leave when her Mata comes to get her. She is waiting for that moment. I couldn't sleep that night, although it wasn't due to any lack in the accommodations. Everything was suitable. It was the nervousness and anticipation that I couldn't explain. I sat outside the small guest hut my mother and I shared, gazing into the starlit sky, when suddenly I overcome with emotion and inexplicitly my chest began to heave. I let the tears flow from no apparent cause. On the journey, I had already decided that after this visit, I would agree to the marriage my father wanted. Even though I, my husband, or my children might die as a result, whatever would come, I would accept it. I could not go on with this tension with my parents, causing them such worry and concern. I would hide my pain deep in my mind so they would no longer know of it. But I knew that this issue was not the cause of my tears. They were not tears of sadness or fear. They seemed to be tears of relief. Relief from what I didn't know. All I knew was that I felt deeply comforted in knowing that I was to meet this attendant Soma. I waited through the night for my mother to awaken, and when she did just after dawn, I was already dressed and ready to go. Let us take our meal first, she replied, trying to slow me down. I nodded, but my mother could sense my eagerness and so did not take much time in preparing herself. After our meal, one of the residents of the hermitage offered to lead us to the hut where Soma lived. It was not a long walk, but we had to enter the forest to arrive there. Soon a clearing was in view, and we could see a small abode built near a series of rock outcroppings. My nervousness increased as we approached the hut. Our guide left us once it was inside, and we approached the door. I stopped. My mother also paused. Would you mind, Ma, if I went in by myself? She smiled and nodded. Of course not. I will wait outside. I pressed open the door. The early morning sunlight had just begun to stream into the room, chasing away the remains of darkness, and I could perceive in the corner a woman seated on the floor. A beam of light fell on her form, and before me I saw a beautiful young woman with dark hair streaming down the sides of her round face, her head covered simply by an orange cloth. That vision lasted only for the briefest second. As I stepped closer, the beautiful woman transformed into a very aged figure seated in meditation, her eyes closed, her deeply lined face still as the silent sky. My breath seemed to stop the moment I saw her. Emotions roiled my insides like a rumbling sea. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, to stay or leave, to remain in the spot where I stood until invited in, or to approach closer. The minutes passed, and still I didn't move. Perhaps it was the brilliance of the morning rays that brought her back to this world. It was only when I heard her feeble voice say, Come, child, you may enter, that I took another step forward in the small room where she was seated. Thank you. This was the end of chapter 9. We will be continuing with chapter 10 day after tomorrow, that is finding Soma. Happy Diwali everyone. Have a good day. Bye bye. And don't forget to like, comment and share. Jai Shri Ram.